Thanks, Anthony, for that first shipper update this morning. We'll have another one coming up in our second hour here of FreightWaves Now. Now we've got our very own CEO and founder, Craig Fuller, in the studio with us for a little bit of a conversation about a really exciting acquisition, going from one media brand to another. Talk to us about your decision to buy Flying.
Yeah, so Flying Magazine is has the largest audience dedicated to aviation. So it started in 1927. It was actually inspired after Charles Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic Ocean, was really how it started by Ziff Davis, who is a renowned publisher and built a lot of magazines. And so I'm a pilot. I've been flying since I was 13 years old. And so I had taken a 20-year break and had gotten back into it. And I started really re-consuming aviation content. And I realized that there was a lot of opportunity being a media executive to build a FreightWaves-inspired brand in aviation. So this is not airline aviation is what most people assume. It's not about, the big airlines. It's mostly about general aviation, which are small aircraft, which are people that are at all stages of their aviation interests. So it could be someone who's an enthusiast who just likes aviation, but it could be the professional pilot that wants to go in and fly a big airliner. But most of the audience is really dedicated to general aviation, which are small airplanes that do it for hobbies and because they love to fly.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. When I saw this come out, and we've talked about this before, you've been flying since you were 13, which I think is amazing. It's really fun. I wish I was brave enough to do it, actually. And there's a ton of people here.
It's very safe.
I know it is. We just having that discussion how, if I was flying, I'd have my chances of dying would be much higher. Actually, no, they'd be much lower if you were in the air all the time, right? Rather than in a car.
Well, I think if you get proper training.
If you know how to fly, right?
Correct,
which
yeah.
was where the stupidity of the argument went, you can imagine.
That's right.
I would crash, right? Because
Again, I think it's all about training, Mike.
It is all about training. So what's the niche? What are you seeing there? What is because it's not like you said, it's not the cargo, it's not the commercial stuff. This is flying, this is the aviators. What's the niche? What's the hole that you saw that you're going to go grab and go?
Well, I think a lot of media businesses, and this is true in the aviation sector, have been largely, if you look at the path of aviation, particularly magazines, which are special interest magazines, a lot of them have been, over the last couple of decades, been bought by these big conglomerates, and they haven't had the passion to put into the actual product. So you have large corporations that are managing these media products, and I think in aviation, we haven't seen the migration to large digital. There is streaming video, photography, things that people that are aviation nuts really want to consume, people that are dedicated want to get access to information. And so really there's an opportunity to digitize the content and really bring it into what I say is best-in-class media, which is what we plan to do with it. So it's really, again, it's about the community. If you focus on the community like we do at FreightWaves, but also we'll do at Flying, then you can build a lot of different experiences and content that really drives both interest, intrigue, as well as awareness. And really, if you've ever been around anyone who's a pilot, who's gone through, it's a process of becoming a pilot. It's not something that is, you have to be dedicated to it to really want to become a pilot. And so people that are pilots are dedicated to the hobby. They tend to love what they do. They may end up becoming a professional pilot, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, which I think people are shocked by, how much money you can, in many ways, make as much as a doctor or a lawyer with.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of the people that do it because they absolutely are passionate about flying and they love it. And our goal is to build content that really intrigues, content that brings out that passion. And it's all about the adventure and the journey of being an aviator. And that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, and that's exciting, and I love that you brought up the adventure and the journey and the passion. Because when you look at it, you've got people where it's an expensive hobby that they do, or relatively inexpensive. Some of it, when you look at it,
I think when you compare it to golf,
yeah,
there are people. It's actually in line with golf.
So if you're really surprisingly not that bad.
If you're a dedicated golfer,
yeah,
then you look at the cost of becoming an aviator, a pilot. It's about the same price. But the advantage of being an aviator is you can go really cool places.
Wait, and that's what I was going.
That's golf. So if you
and then golf.
Combine. We're doing some crossover here.
But it brings in some of those stuff. You can be like a private pilot for people, right? And do that type of stuff where you can become. There's so many things that happen, but it also opens up, in my opinion, or in my what I've seen, this space of kind of an altruistic type of hobby, right? I mean, a lot of these pilots get into this, and then all of a sudden they're flying medical needs and all this type of stuff, right?
There's a lot of things that when you become an aviator, you do it because you love it, oftentimes. And like you mentioned, there's ways to do charity. You see charity flights, you see medical flights. But remember that at the end of the day, every pilot, whether they become a commercial pilot, do it for charity, have to start somewhere. They have to start the training program. And I think what we're trying to do is say, how do we attract new people to become pilots, people that want to fly? And if you look at it, there was a survey done where 6% of the US population have said that they wanted to fly, have attempted to take, have gone out and taken one lesson, or have gone out and started training, but they didn't finish. And the question is, how do we bring more interest into the industry? How do we bring more people that are intrigued? You've talked about how you wanted to fly. It's all about opening people and giving them access to this great industry. And I think over the next couple of decades, you think what's happening with technology and urban mobility, you're still, for at least another 10 to 20 years, we're still going to have pilots. Whether we have drones or we have urban mobility, there's still going to be a human that's in that flight vehicle, and we have to solve to bring people into the industry if we're going to be able to really thrive that.
So I'm a huge aviation nerd, like massive. I took my first Discovery flight last summer and absolutely fell in love with the process. My friend who did the Discovery flight with me just got recommissioned to go to her position to fly the Embraer, I think it's a C-87 for American Airlines, and she was decommissioned last year during the pandemic. I got my start in meteorology in aviation as well, working for an aviation company for 4 years of college. And I'm like hoping I can slide in as a contributor for flying because it is so cool to be, that's something that is so cool to be a part of.
So Kaylee, here's the great thing. As part of the package of people that work for flying, we actually will pay for flight lessons. And so we have about a dozen jobs that are open. And we are
FreightWaves.
Well, I'm conflicted at that, right? You're doing such a good job here. But you think about, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is remind people of how amazing. And I think over the last couple of decades, you know, it's interesting because you look at young people. I have a 14-year-old kid, a 14-year-old son, and a 10-year-old son, and because they're so enamored of video games that they're not, you know, as a young kid, if I wanted to do something really active, flying was one of those hobbies. I think what we as an industry, being the aviation industry and flying specifically, has to do is remind people that there is the opportunity to be an aviator. You don't have to do it in front of a video screen. You can actually do it in real life. And so there's a really big opportunity to open new people up and really help people continue to expand on what you've already experienced, which is the idea of flying and becoming a pilot, which is, it's not inaccessible. It just has to be something that people are encouraged or reminded that is available to them.
Yeah, but I think it does occur to people, hey, I'd love to go fly, but it is inaccessible. Because they never make that step. But if they did and looked, they would find that it is accessible.
I think it does. I mean, let's not forget that there's an important safety component. Sure. You know, we joke about you flying, but it's a serious activity. Sure. And but the great thing is the technology over the last couple of decades has become so much better, and the information we have about safety and what it takes to be a safe pilot is so much better than it's ever been, that flying has never been safer. And so it's just a matter of bringing awareness and engaging people in this activity. And I think that's one of the, if I had a goal as the new owner of flying, is to just remind people that flying aviation is a journey, is an adventure, and it opens up the world in so many ways. And you've done this because you've done your Discovery flights, flying over. I mean, Chattanooga, Tennessee is one of the most beautiful places to fly because you have the green, you have the water, you have the mountains. Yeah. It is amazing. I've taken friends and family up in my plane, and just how beautiful it is. And it's, you see the world that you can't replicate that through, you know, driving a car
on the earth, yeah.
Or even like Google Maps, like, or drones. You can't. To be in the air, you're sort of one. There's nothing like it in the world.
So obviously our media brand success here at FreightWaves has grown exponentially over the last year. So what lessons from being the top chain of FreightWaves are you going to take into flying?
Well, first of all, you have to have passion. So let's not forget that. I mean, one of the reasons I think FreightWaves has been successful is because the people that work here are very passionate about this industry. So that's the first thing. So bringing passion into aviation is the first thing. The second thing is cadence of content. So I think a lot of times, and I've seen this in a number of publications where you put out content on once a week, sort of on a magazine cadence. you have to have constant ongoing engagement. I think particularly for younger people who are used to sort of that gratification of getting information, and pilots are no different. They want information. As a pilot who sort of rediscovered his, my hobby, I was constantly looking for information. There wasn't enough information available in a single type hub. So we're going to build that with flying and really double down on photography, on video. I call it aircraft porn. Like as an aviator, you want to see airplanes. Like as a kid, I was an aircraft nut, and I had beautiful posters and photography of all the airplanes up on my wall. That's the type of stuff that if you're into aviation, you want. And so just giving people the ability to experience the world as an aviator is really what this is all about.
So would you ever be a racer, Red Bull Air Racing?
Well, Red Bull has recently shut down their racing league.
Okay.
They did shut down the racing league, but there is now discussion of a new racing league coming up next year. There's also some really cool activities that are racing, but also challenging, where you can go out and you have to land in a very skilled challenges, very specific spot. So there's a lot to be done here, and I'm just so excited. I'm as excited about this, about being a part of flying and having the chance to. There's a chance to help rebuild the brand or build it for the next generation, as I was in the early days of FreightWaves, because it's. I think there's just so much opportunity here. There's so much the ability to build this experience and this brand and really reinforce how amazing the aviation industry and how exciting it is to be a pilot.
So my dream flight is to fly with the Hurricane Hunters. I want to go up with Noah in the Air Force Reconnaissance jet and fly through a hurricane. What is your dream flight?
I've always dreamed of being an Alaska bush pilot. So
that's what I was thinking immediately.
That is cool. Neither of those, let's be fair, are safe. Flying into hurricanes and being a bush pilot is not the safest area.
I'm in contact with the Hurricane Hunters, just saying.
Hey, I'm sure it's going to be a great success. You took an exciting job like driving a truck and made it badass with FreightWaves.
We're going to make flying airplanes, which is slightly more badass.
But that's what I'm saying. You're starting with a little higher, product to start with, right? Flying is a little bit more exciting than driving a truck.
I think both of them, in their own, what they do are very. Driving a truck is about driving the economy, and what aviation is about is driving a passion and seeing the world in ways that we haven't. And so much has changed over the past 100 years with what aviation has done for society, and it's going to continue over the next 100 years of what it will do in terms of how cities will change and how we as society will live. It's such an exciting time. First of all, this is a passion project, but it's also one that I'm so honored to be able to own this. I grew up reading. This is like a sports kid that grew up reading Sports Illustrated. Yeah. This is my Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. So
this
is really exciting.
Awesome stuff.
We're really excited to see where this goes. It's going to be great, and of course, we'll take it to the skies, to the moon.
We have our first virtual event on October 27th. We're doing a 2022 preview of what's next at Aviation for next year, including really cool. We're going to have a lot of video of the aircraft that you will be able to get next year in the general aviation sector, as well as all of the products that are coming out and have come out. There's really one last note. Garmin Aviation, which we probably know from the GPS, and they're in a lot of different sectors. There you go. Garmin loves that. They have built a technology that in the event, basically, you can press a button, the plane will land itself. And this is for general aviation. It's meant for safety. And what makes that pretty amazing is it makes if the pilot isn't able to fly for whatever reason, it lands the aircraft. And it's what that's going to do in terms of people's comfort of being in a general aviation plane is so different. And it's pretty remarkable.
That's a whole nother, we can unpack the hell out of that.
We can, and we're going to on October.
Automation in aviation, comfort. Automation in truck, not on my road.
Well, I think at the end of the day, the pilot is going to be a reality for decades to come.
Sure.
But the technology is going to make it safer.
Right.
The technology is going to open up a lot of availability that we don't have, and it's going to enable us to see the world in ways that we haven't. And I think it's going to democratize aviation, because it's going to make it so much safer and so much more convenient than it is today. It's just going to be an amazing amazing
Excellent
run.
stuff.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for joining us, Craig, this morning. We'll keep a watch out for you and some more stuff that's coming up.